to you all, and welcome to the OLED Consulting monthly PM Roundtable. My name is Ade Adeyemi. I'm your host and CEO at OLED Consulting. If you're joining us for the first time, OLED Consulting is a management consulting firm specialized in IT professional services in the areas of staffing, training, and project delivery services. So we do connect IT professionals to opportunities within the industry. We also provide training and employment placement services for individuals that are looking to get into the fields of project management and or business analysis. We are thrilled to have you all on the call today for what promises to be a thought-provoking and enriching session. Our mandate for the PM Roundtable is to create an avenue for our IT professional community to share information, network, discuss industry trends, and create opportunities for career growth. Ultimately, our goal is to raise leaders, and we definitely hope that today's roundtable will contribute to that agenda. Our conversation today evolves around navigating new situations, building authentic relationships, and carving out successful paths in our careers. These are not just abstract ideas, but real-world challenges that many of us face. Today, we have the privilege of hearing from our distinguished panelists who have gracefully navigated these challenges and are here to share their wisdom. Before we delve into this very important conversation, I want to take a moment to acknowledge all of you, the aspiring professionals, seasoned veterans on the call, and everyone in between. It's your dedication to growth and self-improvement that brings energy to forums like this. Now, as we set out on this exciting journey of discovery, I encourage everyone to be present, engage, ask questions, and most importantly, reflect on how these discussions resonate with your own experiences. Now, without further ado, let's meet the panelists. The first panelist we're going to be introducing today is Buki Adewuyi. Welcome, Buki.
Ade.
So Buki, as we'll have you on the call, if you don't mind just giving us a brief overview of your background, something very high-level synopsis, so folks on the call know who you are.
Thank you so much, Ade. As the profile says, I'm a certified auditor. I'm a chartered accountant. I have over 20 years, mostly in consulting. I currently work in the credit union here in British Columbia in Canada. And most of my experience has been internal audit, risk management, corporate governance, and now finance, financial reporting, planning, procurement, and business intelligence. So I'm extremely excited to be here. I'm also a community advocate. I love the community. I do a lot of work in the community. So very excited to be giving back in this manner and to meet everyone. Thanks everyone on the call for being here. I see a couple of my classmates already.
Oh, exciting. Well, thank you so much for that introduction, Buki. We're excited to have you on the call and we'll look forward to learning from you today. Our next panelist that we're going to be introducing is Xian Xu. Welcome, Xian.
Thank you, Ade. Welcome, everyone. So it's a pleasure and honor to be here today. I am an executive coach, and in that capacity, I get to work with some very successful and ambitious people, leaders, to help them become even better versions of themselves. If you think about it, because we always keep growing. And I've been fortunate to have been mentored by the world's #1 executive coach, Marshall Goldsmith. Some of you may have heard his name. He was the coach for Alan Mulally, who was CEO at Boeing, at Ford, Jim Kim, who was the CEO at World Bank, and a lot of the other Fortune 100 companies. So, my journey to being here today has been quite a whirlwind, but very grateful for what I do. And I spent most of my career in the healthcare industry, starting on the front lines as a clinician, and then moving into more of the project management realm, into leadership, and then into the executive coaching space. So excited to be here and share, wisdom with all of you and learn from all of you as well. Thank you so much.
Yeah, excellent. Well, thank you so much. Again, we're very grateful to have you on the call. Perhaps we're going to get some insights that executives pay for. We're going to get this for free. So we're really excited to have you at the forum. We're going to go next to Hugh Lawson. Welcome, Hugh. Please introduce yourself and what can the audience know about you?
Well, hey, good morning or good afternoon, everybody. My name is Hugh Lawson. Currently, I'm the head of business development at EHN. EHN is Canada's largest privately run network of addiction and mental health treatment facilities. September 6th, last week, was my 1-year anniversary. I actually spent the previous 20 plus years in the B2B space, particularly working at Staples. So I made a pivot, of which I'm more than glad and more than proud to share what I've learned this past year in making that pivot into a new career, just trying to find a space with more impact and meaning and just being able to get into the legacy phase of my life. So outside of that, doing a lot of work within the community, within underserved communities, just advocating, a lot of mentorship, working with our emerging young leaders coming up, and really happy to be a part of today's conversation. So thank you, and it's a big shout out to our esteemed panelists, Ade and team, for doing such an incredible job with putting this together, and all of you that are taking time to learn and grow on a Saturday.
Super. Well, thank you so much, Hugh. We're really excited to have you on the call. And we're interested in learning about how you've been able to pivot in the past year. Again, when we talk about learning and evolving, it's a lifelong exercise. So we're excited to have you on the call, and we're excited to get into the conversation. Before we get into this conversation, we're going to launch a poll. We'll appreciate everyone on the call to participate in the live poll that's going to be launched shortly before we get into the conversation. So we're just going to give people some time to respond to the poll. And once we're done with this, once the poll closes, we'll get into the conversation. We'll give about 20 seconds.
Pretty exciting to watch all the bars. They're like competing against each other.
Well, it's
like a horse. It's like a horse race.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I'm not sure everyone can see what you guys see on the screen here. I think it's really important for us to know that this responses gives us an idea. And the poll question is around navigating new professional scenarios. The question is, have you ever found yourself in a completely unfamiliar professional scenario or role? I think a huge aspect of what we're going to be talking about on the call today will be around that. And I think it's great to hear from the participant. We will end the poll in another 10 seconds. We'll give another 10 seconds and then we'll end the poll and dive into the conversation. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much for participating. We will get started with the conversation at this point. We'll exit the presentation mode. Let's see who's on the call. Thank you so much. Great to see everyone on the call. Thanks to all the participants on the call today. We'll get right into the conversation. Again, to get started, we're going to start the conversation around our first round of questions. Will focus around adapting to new scenarios and challenges. And I'm going to start with you first, Buki. In your professional journey, can you share a specific situation where trust into an unfamiliar scenario or role where you were thrust into an unfamiliar scenario or role, how did you approach it? What strategies did you employ to adapt successfully?
Thanks so much, Ade. So many scenarios in my experience and my career come to mind, but I'll share one that stands out. And this was in 2005. Back then, I started my career with PwC in 2003, and I did tax and corporate advisory services. And the corporate advisory services part of it, right back then, was, for those of you who might recall, it was those days when the Central Bank of Nigeria was asking the banks to increase their capital ratios. So there was a lot of mergers and acquisitions. And so we would do the due diligence, and then we'll help the banks look at their entire operations and tell them where to streamline and, you know, where to cut out inefficiencies and all that. So that was what I did. And then in 2005, I applied to transfer to the PwC office, and I wanted a smaller office. So I got there and they told me, oh, we don't have tax. And that was fine by me because I didn't want to do tax anymore. And I said, okay, so what do you have? What do you do? And they said, we do performance improvement. And I'm like, oh yeah, I did that back in Nigeria, thinking it was the same kind of work that I did with the bank. So I got into that, and I found out their performance improvement was really government consulting work, you know, like project management for government. And you know how slow things can be when you work with the government. I was frustrated, like it wasn't what I wanted to do. So one day I went back to the partners and I said, you know what, this isn't working for me. This is not the performance improvement that I'm used to. What else do you have? And so they said, well, we do internal audit, we do external audit, but the external audit, you know, has a lot of things surrounding it. So I said, okay, I'm going to try the internal audit. So I went into internal audit, and I found out that was actually closer to the performance improvement that I did, because it was really process reviews and then advice and recommendations for the clients. And that's how I moved from performance improvement into internal audit and risk management. And when I got into that, I then started, you know, looking for, how do I succeed? How do I actually make myself an SME in this field? And I learned about, oh, well, you can become a certified auditor, you can, and so I started studying and taking the exams, became a certified auditor. Later, I took a certification in risk management assurance, controls assessment, and built myself up to a level where years later, when the South African Institute of Internal Auditors wanted to revisit and revise the curriculum for internal audit in South Africa, and they wanted to bring SMEs together, I was actually one of the people that they called to come and do that. And so if I were to recap some of the strategies that I used, was I was curious, I was willing to explore. And especially when you are in the initial stages of your career, don't be afraid to ask what else is out there. Right? What else can I do? If something is not working for you, you know, how else can I make it work for me? So that was one thing that worked. And it might not be, your particular situation might not be as easy as walking up to your partners like I did. It might be such a conversation with your manager, or it might actually be a complete change of career, or a complete change of organization. The second thing strategy that I would say that I did that you can pick from that was to build myself, you know, to capacitate myself with everything that I actually needed to adapt to the new career path that I use and that I needed to be successful. So I think that's what I can share there. Yeah, be brave, be curious, explore, and just, you know, invest in yourself.
Wow, excellent. I love how you incorporated storytelling into this sharing that you did. I think that's very important. I love the fact that you shared your story. And I also love the fact that, for me, a key takeaway is being intentional, you know, knowing exactly what you want and being intentional about it. And the way you went about it is extremely important, because often we find ourselves in situations and we just kind of roll with it because we think, okay, that's the situation, that's the opportunity. Again, don't be afraid to ask questions. Thank you so much, Buki. We really appreciate it. We're going to keep, again, I do want to mention that we have an announcement coming up towards the tail end of this webinar. We're going to be announcing something exciting. So please stay tuned. We're going to keep the conversation around adapting to new scenarios and the challenges that we may face when adapting to new scenarios. And my next question is to you, Shinyan. Resilience is often cited as a key trait for navigating new situations. Now, as an executive coach, I think this is sort of like an area where you can lend us some of your expertise. We're talking about resilience, often cited as a key trait for navigating new situations. From your experience, can you offer insights or techniques on how professionals can build and maintain resilience, especially during initial phases of change?
Sure, Addie. It's a great question. And I think over the last few years with COVID, many people are tired of the word resilience because it's almost, like we've heard it so much and it's lost some of its weight. But when I think of resilience, I know we're speaking about the professional realm here, but I want to take us back to our stories, even in our personal realm, because many of us here in Canada are immigrants, children of immigrants. And, I'm an immigrant myself, and I often think back to my grandparents who actually left China during the Civil War, and because their immediate family were being persecuted, they had to literally flee with nothing, just, some money, some food in their pockets, kids in tow. They lost their kids along the way. They walked for one whole year, and they decided to settle down in India, of all places. And, starting in a new country, new culture, new religion. This was under the British rule when India was still under the British rule. I often think back to what it took for them to begin that journey. And my grandmother, some of you may be familiar with bound feet. So it was an old ancient Chinese tradition which would break young girls' feet and then tie them up with cloth to keep it small. It was like a sign of beauty. And obviously, over time, they realized it was actually very cruel to be doing that, but it was super painful and it's hard to walk on. And she ended up walking that entire journey of a whole year to, move to India, settle down, start a family. My father was born there, the youngest of their 6 kids, and then I was born in India as well. So I often think back to what it took for them to make that journey, to make that sacrifice, and then how can we apply it to our own lives? Because we all have those personal stories. I will encourage each one of you to go back to your own history and you will find them. You will definitely find them. So in terms of tools, tricks, I'll leave you with these. So Nietzsche has a quote. It's sometimes, attributed to Nietzsche, to sometimes Viktor Frankl. And he says, "He who has a why can bear any how." So what is your why? Why do you wake up every day? Why do you do what you do? And if you dig down to that, nothing is going to stop you. Nothing at all. So really find a purpose that's bigger than yourself. Okay? Accept your situation the way it is. Some things you can control. A lot of it we really cannot control, as we know it, although we like to control as human beings. So just accept the situation as it is. Then ask yourself, what is the learning in here for me? There's always something to learn in any given situation. Okay. The next thing you should do is build relationships. And the most important person to build that relationship with is yourself. Okay. Yourself first, and then the others. You're never alone. You're never alone on this journey. All of us have gotten here because of some others, and I'm sure the others can attest to it, with me on this panel. We've all been supported in some way or form to be here today. And then the last thing is really take action, whatever it is. Don't get stuck, because if we look at physiologically, I won't get into the details, but we have something called the sympathetic system and the parasympathetic nervous system. And one is the fight, flight, freeze response. And often we go into that response, and that's where you get stuck. So you want to take action, anything small, get moving, get going, go for a walk, just do something, even a small action. It might take you in the right direction, it might not, but either way, you've moved and you've learned something. So, I'm not going to tell you go practice yoga, practice meditation. Those are great things, and I do it myself personally. For some, it works really well. For some, it takes a little bit of time. But I would say those are some broader things to keep in mind, and then find what works for you. But really, remember, figure out your why, your purpose, why you're here, why you wake up to do what you do, and that will keep you going. I promise you that.
Super. Well, thank you so much, Ian. That's very insightful. We're talking about, I think one of the key conversations that we've had here in the past is the why, and we need to have a purpose. And for me, the things that you mentioned that I'm still learning, I think when you talked about accepting the situation as is, I think a lot of us struggle with that, being able to accept and then ask the question, what can I learn from this? What is this moment trying to teach me? And I love the fact that you ended with the take action, because most times we when things happen, we will often result into familiar patterns and things that we're familiar with, and we get into those behaviors that may not necessarily serve our bigger purpose. So having to take actions, understanding, and building a relationship with yourself, I think that's amazing. Again, a lot to unpack, a lot to talk about. We're excited. Thank you so much, Ian. We're gonna keep it on the same topic, which is around adapting to new scenarios and figuring out how to deal with those challenges. And the question around change is extremely important. And this question is for you, Hugh. Change, especially unexpected or rapid change, can often be overwhelming. Can often be overwhelming. How do you differentiate between challenges that require immediate action versus those that demand more patience and a long-term approach?
Well, no, that's a great question. And I'm still marinating on everything that I just got from the last answer of our esteemed. When you're on a panel with someone and they're quoting Nietzsche, it's like, whoa, all right, we got to raise our game here. So with regards to just unexpected or rapid change, I think one of the things that I try to impart with my team and those that are emerging and are on a professional development path to become leaders is that there is absolutely nothing wrong with pausing. Oftentimes, maybe you watch it in the movies, you see that, fearless leader, and they come and they're like, Captain, the ship is gonna blow any moment. And then they're like, they immediately have it. You go there, you go get the dilithium crystal, go into warp factor 5, you go down to the main basement, pull the broom out of the closet and mop up the mess. And it's like, how did they do that so quickly? For me, I've never experienced that in real life where people can just make those quick decisions on the fly, especially in an organizational scenario. I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with pausing. Just pausing, just sort of taking in what you heard, advising or just articulating to those that are maybe waiting for an answer that, you know what, I'm processing this. And then also framing it. During that pause, where you can easily become overwhelmed or riddled with anxiety, how do you frame the opportunity? Like, opportunities can be looked on in many ways. They can be looked on, or an event can be looked on so many different ways. It can be looked upon as an opportunity, or it can be looked upon as a crisis. I choose the former. So when I pause, just try to reflect on what is in front of me. The next thing I do is I do seek the advice of others. Oftentimes, you can get a contrasting opinion or a contrasting perspective. I surround myself with a board of advisors, like close confidants and colleagues that I often bounce things off of on a regular basis. And in many cases, they are people that have contrasting opinions. So I may have someone on my board advisor that's a hugger, that's going to hug me when I'm not too sure about myself. I have someone else that comes from a different walk of life, that comes from a different perspective, or someone that's just going to kick me in the pants and say, look, just get to it. But all of them have positive intent and they want what's best for me. So that's the other thing after the pause and the framing, is seeking the consult of others. Also, too, when I look at the decision that's about to be made, I try to look at it as holistically as possible. Like, how does it affect all those that are involved? How does it affect the organization that it's potentially happening within? And then how does it affect all those constituents, short-term and long-term? And And with all of those, that's when I make the decision. And I find like in a team environment, often there's like, say, for example, I'm in a situation right now where I have to perform with some members of my team. And around your peers, maybe in a management capacity, the machismos, get rid of them, fire them. And in many cases, your decision affects your social standing within your leadership peer group. However, when you look at it from the standpoint from the people involved, long-term and also short-term, and then doing your homework, seeking the advice of others, framing it properly, the last thing is when you make the decision is just to trust your instincts. Like, just because in many cases, your instincts are a culmination of many years of scenarios and experiences. And often we take for granted the depth and layers and quality of experiences we have because of our journeys. Oftentimes, those qualities of journeys are based on, we gauge it against maybe something more conventional, like what we see in a Canadian leader, or what we see in someone who's been living in the country for 50 years. But the journey you took to get here, which was arduous, which was challenging, which came from another part of the planet, is rich in reference points. And in many cases, the decision and the right one is right in front of you. And it's been laid, that path's been laid way ahead in advance. So yeah, it's just a number of different factors, but I just try not to do it alone, and I try not to react, and I just try to pause, and most importantly, I try to frame it in the right way.
Well, excellent. There's a lot to unpack. There's a lot to take away from that. Thank you so much, Hugh. I think a lot of people don't put enough emphasis on the concept of having a board of advisors, having people around you and I love the fact that you mentioned that these people don't think the same way as you do. I think it's important, because when we get people that think the same way that we do, how much learning are we doing? So which is really important. And that pausing is extremely important for all the professionals on the call. When you're in meetings, when things come at you, take a moment, maybe 5 seconds. It might seem like a long time. 5 seconds is right there. Take a moment is extremely important, and framing is also good, extremely important. Great nuggets. We're going to keep the show going. Thank you so much again, Hugh, and the rest of the panelists for those insightful responses. Next round of question, we're going to be talking about building and maintaining professional relationships. I think relationship building is extremely important when we're talking about career growth, when we're talking about navigating new scenarios, new situations. So we're going to talk about professional building those relationships. The first person I'm going to go to is Buki. Buki, question around building trust. And I think trust is key, especially in the virtual world today. And we're talking about, teams working in different capacity. Building trust is often considered the cornerstone of any professional relationship. Can you share a time when you had to quickly establish trust with a colleague or team, and what strategies or actions helped you achieve that goal?
Thank you so much, Ade. That's a very important question. So you recall how I said I had moved into internal audit and risk management. Everyone knows that auditors are not the most liked or trusted people, right? So this question is peculiar because it's something that I've had to do, most of my professional career. But one scenario or one time that comes to my mind that I would love to share is this was in 2014, and I had been headhunted by what is now Grant Thornton in South Africa. Back then it was just SNG, now it's SNG Grant Thornton, and it was a merger of the two largest Black firms in South Africa, and they had come together to become the Big Five. So after the Big Four, they were the biggest. And when they approached me, I was a senior manager at Deloitte. So I left as a senior manager at Deloitte to go join them as an associate director. And when I came in, they gave me my own portfolio. Now, for those who have worked with the Big Four, you know how the structures are. Like if you're an associate director, there will still be a partner like on top of you, and then you have your managers and senior managers. When I got into SNG Grant Thornton, I was given my own portfolio of difficult clients, you know, the clients that nobody wanted to touch, like those clients that you just had to be on your toes. And there was no partner, like I was in charge. And, you know, so I had those clients now that I had to get to trust me and to build a relationship with. And then on the other hand, also for those who have worked with the Big Four, you know how everything is very structured. Like you have your own field, and then you have your colleagues that are SMEs in other fields, and you dare not go into other people's fields. So back at Deloitte, I did internal audit, and it was manual controls, right? I would look at controls outside the system. And when it comes to the system, I would go to my technology colleagues and they will come in and look at the general controls and applications. Now, when I got into SNG Grant Thornton and I was the associate director, I had my own portfolio. I was not only responsible for my manual auditors, but I was also responsible for the technology auditors. Now, this was seasoned professionals. Most of them senior managers with lots of experience, older than me. I think back then I was just around 35. And, you know, they had their CISA, C-Risk, CSIM, like they were highly qualified. And yet I was expected to lead them. So initially it was like, you know, who is this? What does she know? So I had to put in a lot of work first with the clients, and then a lot of work with my team. I promise you, it wasn't funny back then. It was a lot of work. But what did I do? So one of the things that I did was that with the clients, I first of all invested time in knowing about their business, spending time with them, and actually making them see that I was there to help them. So when they're talking about their strategy, I was able to take a risk lens and say, are you sure that's where you want to go? Are you sure that's what you want to do? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? And slowly, you know, they started trusting what I said, and they would invite me into their strategy sessions. They would invite me into their risk sessions. If they find they're not sure about something, they will call me and say, can you look into this for us? But I also had to put in the work to get to know about what they do, to get close to them, to build a relationship with them, to invest in them and make them know that I'm on their side. I had to get to know what was valuable to them. So that's how I built trust with my clients. And then with my team on the other hand, right, because they expected me to know what they're talking about when they talk about general controls and application controls. And I also had to invest in myself in terms of that. That was what led me to actually writing my CISA and, you know, just going to study for that and making sure that I could have those conversations with them. And so over time, with that kind of investment and with that willingness to learn, so the willingness to learn, the willingness to invest time in getting to know what the team needs, what kind of leadership they need, what kind of support they would need, I was able to eventually build that trust with the clients and also build the trust with the team. But, you know, a lot of investment and getting to understand what value means to both groups to be able to build that trust and the relationship.
Oh, excellent. Well, thank you so much, Buki. Again, lots to unpack. And again, I love how you incorporate storytelling into the responses. Building trust requires investment into relationships, and I think you've very much articulated it very well. Thank you so much. We're gonna go next to Xian. And Xian, good question here. You know, we're talking about in a world where we're looking at remote teams. We're talking about remote in a world where practically everywhere there are remote teams. Now, we're talking about digital interaction, especially, you know, with this recent surge of remote work. How do you ensure the depth and authenticity of your professional relationships remain intact? Do you have any techniques or platforms you found particularly effective?
I know it's the topic everyone is discussing, and remote work, although it's new for many of us, it was there even prior to COVID. It just sort of amplified for the rest of the world, you know. And as Bucky said, Buki, sorry if I mispronounced that, Buki. Trust is the foundation of any relationship. So how do you go about building that trust online? I think that's where you're getting at. And I would say if something is important to you, you will find a way. If something is not important to you, you're going to find an excuse. So is it really important for you to build an authentic relationship with that person? If so, you're going to do whatever it takes to build that relationship. And we've seen it. I'm going to give you sort of an example in our personal realm. We've seen people meet online and fall in love and get married and things like that. So it is possible to do that. Now, I will tell you personally, I have been doing a lot of work virtually myself. So a lot of our coaching engagements, a lot of our workshops, team-based things we are doing virtually. And I've been able to build solid relationships through that. A lot of my leaders in our session, it's very common for them to actually break down, and you might, tear up. Sometimes tears of joy, sometimes tears of some revelation, new realization, just letting go. So it is just allowing them to have that space, as Buki said, how do you build that trust so that they feel seen, they feel heard, and then they're able to relate to you and share more. And, one thing to keep in mind is instead of being an interesting person, become interested in the other person. So that will automatically spark your curiosity, and ask them questions that you're interested in, not just for the sake of asking. And often the other piece is now listening. So it's one thing to ask questions, but another part is to actually listen. The majority of the people on our planet, in our teams, actually listen to respond. They don't listen to actually listen. And I won't go into the levels of listening and all of that, but how do you listen with your entire mind, your entire body, not just listening and, when they're saying something, you're thinking about your own situation, but how do you just listen without anything there, which is very, very hard to do. But if you're able to create that space for them where you can really get interested in them, ask them questions where they feel seen, they feel heard, they're going to open up to you, and they're going to actually connect to you. And it all starts with that connection. Once you have that connection, the next thing we need to do is keep it going. What do you need to do to a garden? You have to keep nurturing it. You have to keep watering it. It needs the sun, it needs the water. It's the same thing with relationships. You have to reach out to them before you actually need something. So don't wait till you actually need something to then reach out. As Hugh said, he has his board of advisors. You built that relationship, so they trust you. You trust them. So it's the same thing. So I'll end it there. Ask questions, become curious, be present. Try to forget about your problems in that space for at least some time, even if it's a minute, and then keep on building that relationship. Cultivate the relationship, nurture it. Yeah.
Wow, super. And I love that, being intentional about that relationship building and nurturing relationships. I think one thing that's really important, and the point that you raised, is the ability to listen, and to listen, not just to respond, because most times we can't even wait for people to finish speaking before we jump into the conversation, because we have all these ideas, and what's missing in the process is the ability to establish that authentic relationship. And I think that authentic relationship, especially in the virtual team environment, we talk to our PMs a lot, IT professionals a lot, when it comes to stakeholder management. And when you're trying to lead a project and you're trying to get buy-in from people, there's a lot of focus around alignment. But then most times people reach out to stakeholders when you need them. Why is it a difficult stakeholder? They're not difficult. You just didn't carry them along. How do you show interest? I know Buki also talked about building relationship genuinely in terms of being interested in the stakeholders. And part of that is being able to listen and have that authentic dialogue. This is exciting. Thank you so much, Sheehan. Again, there's a lot to unpack here. I'm taking notes. I'm definitely taking a lot from this session. We're going to go to you next, Hugh. And you were still talking about building and maintaining professional relationships. Now, relationships require maintenance, especially as roles change, projects evolve, and even when conflicts arise. Can you discuss an instance where you are to actively invest in maintaining or mending a professional relationship. What lessons did you derive from that experience?
So I actually wanted to add something to Shien's very salient points around virtual, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's around the whole virtual presence. What I found, like from the standpoint of her points around building trust and listening to learn, or just listen rather than listening to respond, I find that the virtual experience is a tale of two extremes, meaning it's very easy to be very disengaged in a virtual call. You don't come on camera, or how many of us have had those calls where someone's literally responding to email while you're meeting with them, and it's very evident that they have this 500-foot stare, that they're clearly not focused on you. That's the one extreme where it can go so horribly wrong, where it's like, this person is not listening to a word I'm saying. I'm not giving them any more of my energy. And then in the call, and the quality of the call trails off. However, the tail of the extreme on the other side of the spectrum is, I read an article about what is known as e-charisma, in that actually the virtual experience could be an accelerator of building a bond versus being in person. Because if you look at these pictures, like if you look at our esteemed panelists framing, they're front and center on the screen. They're either blurred backgrounds, or there's a backdrop that's conducive to their presence right in the center of the screen. That is a lot more, for me, connecting than me being across the table from someone in a room full of distractions. So that can actually work to your favor. So that e-charisma and framing could actually accelerate relationship building and bond building, because you're at the focal point of a frame where you can't look anywhere else. Like I can't sense you over there. I can't sense you, but you're front and center. And in many cases, the quality of your presence, your picture, the quality of your camera, your backdrop, the quality of your sound, to me, when I'm on a call with someone, those are all very subtle but powerful indicators that my time with them is worth something, because they've come prepared and they've put all resources in place so we can make the best of our time together. So that's just some food for thought. I'm going on into just the relationship. So I'm in business development. What I learned from a mentor years ago was selling internally is much more difficult than selling externally. Because when you're in sales or business development, you're more than likely met with a hint of cynicism, suspicion, and doubt by your internal colleagues. And also maybe frustration and anxiety, because every time you bring something new in, it throws out the routine of what is already happening and what your teammates have spent a great deal of time to get going. And then to add insult to injury, if you bring in an opportunity, it doesn't change their pay scale any. So it's like, okay, I got to do this extra work for this unknown entity that they're bringing in which many cases they're bringing it in and they're telling you that it's the best thing that's ever happened. Oh, I get this exciting new opportunity and it's going to change. And it's like, yeah, I heard that last year. Like when you brought in that Acme food supply deal, and it was just a rotten carcass and it amounted to nothing. And I worked all these extra hours. I don't know if I trust your word. So we have to build and maintain and often mend fences on a regular basis to build that trust, or to get past that cynicism, or to get people to buy into an opportunity that we're excited about. So in many cases, when you're building those relationships, what I found over time is it's really simple. It's everything your mama taught you, or anything that you watched your uncle do really well, or what you do in a social light. I find the best way to build relationships, to mend fences, to build credibility, and to most importantly build trust is to humanize. Not make it about yourself. Try and walk in their shoes. In many cases, the resistance that you might be getting from someone internally or externally is probably being fueled by something that is happening in their lives. And you're not going to get that information to help the overall relationship or to cultivate the overall relationship in a boardroom with 10 other peers in the room. You have to go one-on-one. I find if you really want to see the measure of a person, you take them outside the building. Lunch, dedicate an hour to getting to know that person. And just the fact that another thing that is very important with just taking them outside the building and humanizing them is you have to make the first move. You have to show the desire. You're not going to be, you can't wait for someone to do it for you. So I find that, you know, in my current situation, there's often a, you know, there's often a bit of a barrier between clinical leadership and commercial leadership. Our clinical leadership at our facilities and at our outpatient programs, they want people to remain alive. Like every dying hour of the day and minute of the day, they're trying to keep people out of harm's way through their clinical care. So when you come in and say, hey, I have this one client that would like to bring in certain employees for treatment, and although you do 50-day programs, they need to shorten it to 42 because that's all they can afford. It creates this dynamic where it's like you only care about the money and you're just probably caring about your commission. And then the dehumanization and the villainization starts. But those same people in a tense, you know, anxiety-fueled environment of a corporate meeting, when you go and grab a bite to eat and you get to know them and you listen and you learn about them and you empathize with them, and then also you show some vulnerability of what's happening in your world and what's keeping you up at night. And in many cases, at the end of that whole exchange, you realize that you both want to keep people out of harm's way and you now have a commonality. When you go back into the building, the exchanges are a lot easier because they see another human being in front of them. This is not a person that's just trying to sell anything to try and make a buck. And on the flip side, you're not just seeing a person who is being rigid and is not being open to variability to clinical care. And then what I find is that you can't just do that on a lunch once every blue moon. It has to be on a regular basis. So what starts with a lunch continues with standing one-on-one calls versus you and that person on a call. And I find I get way more done in those standing calls where there's no agenda. It's just, hey, Sheehan, happy Friday. Well, wasn't it a crazy week? Yeah, that's great. You know, and I find it just humanizing the interactions and empathizing, understanding that person's situation, but then also importantly, giving them something to empathize with you. And that may require vulnerability has become a superpower in a leadership environment these last couple of years. It's really come to light that vulnerability is an immense superpower as a leader. So yeah, just some thoughts. Yeah.
Exciting. Well, thanks so much, Hugh. Lot to unpack. You know, we're really appreciative of this sort of conversation we're having on the call today. I love how you incorporated your business development background, and I think that is very critical because when it comes to business development and getting people to buy into your idea or product, and we even talk about internal or external, is extremely important to humanize the process, being intentional. And I think empathy is key because if I'm going to get any idea across to you, to an audience, we need to understand the pain points of those audience. We need to find a way to engage and establish a relationship. It's not just about putting out ideas that we have. Thank you so much.
No problem. I mean, one last quick point, and I think you're probably gonna have to get like some kind of blow dart or something to, because I'm prone to tangents. I apologize. The other thing too is I think we add too much mythology to what makes the measure of a great leader or someone that you're working with in an executive capacity. When you get into those closed door rooms, and you have like executive leaders, CEOs, directors, VPs, and they're talking and they're making decisions about other people's futures, in many cases, it's not like, well, this person is very intelligent, or this person is got immense work ethic. If I've had a dime for every time I've been in those conversations and they want to know if that person that they're making a decision about is a good human being or a good person to work with, I wouldn't have to work. It's incredible just how a lot of the influence you'll have and a lot of the outcomes and opportunities that'll be afforded to you will come down to how people see you as a human being. And
Wow.
that's where you have to really humanize each other and get to know people and spread your brand that way.
Absolutely. That's really exciting. And the next round of questions is really, this is a huge, Hugh, I love what you just shared, because that's a big segue to the next round of questions. And we're going to be talking about career choices. Before we get into those next round of questions, we do have a poll. Please bear with us. We have another poll. We'd like to hear from you, because this conversation we're having is around, Hugh was just talking about scenarios where you have people in leadership capacity, you have potential sponsors or people that may be helping your career. And, the poll now we have here is around pillars of career success. Which of the following do you consider most vital for your career success? So I think this piece is going to be very important. So we're just going to take a moment for folks to respond to this question, to the poll, and then we'll proceed to the next round of questions.
This is very exciting. I like this. I like watching the bars. It's almost like you could do some color commentary. We got networking coming on the main stretch in first place, followed by continuous learning. Oh, continuous learning is catching up. It's like the Kentucky Derby.
We have a new job for you, Hugh.
Yeah, I can get rid of his day job and just do color commentary on live polls.
It seems like networking is leading the way right now. Yeah, building relationships. Okay, exciting. We will momentarily move on to the next round of questions. Just to kind of get everyone prepared for the next round of questions. The topic for the next round of questions is around strategies and techniques for career success. And we're going to do something a little different right now. We're going to switch things around. We're going to start with you first, Sheehan. I know the previous times we started with Buki. We'll start with you first, Sheehan, and then we'll go to, and then we'll mix in, I'm not sure, maybe Hugh or Buki. We'll see. We'll take it from there. So as we wrap up the poll, I just want to wait to see once the poll ends, we will resume the next round. Okay, thank you so much. We probably have about 10 seconds left, and then we'll wrap up the poll. Okay, so the poll has ended. I've just been informed that the poll has ended. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next round of questions. The first one we're going to get to is to you, Sheehan. Continuous learning is frequently emphasized in today's ever-evolving professional landscape. Can you highlight any skills or knowledge areas you've pursued over outside of your main job that have significantly impacted your career trajectory? How do you identify which areas to focus on for upskilling?
Awesome. So I'm going to first just add on to what Hugh had said in his previous answer, because I love the emphasis on humanizing leadership. We always say, don't just aim to be a better leader, aim to be a better person, a better human being. So yeah, I love that. Everything is so resonating, with me. And to answer your question, Addie, Jim Rohn, some of you may be familiar with his work. If not, you should go and watch some of his videos and read about the stuff he's done. But he says, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. And I wish I knew this earlier in my career, right? So, I mean, it's better late than never. So I learned it later, but you know, what a big change and difference it made, not only in my career trajectory, but I'm telling you in my personal life as well. So the key to what changed the trajectory for me would be personal development. It would be understanding how human beings work, how I work, understanding who I am. You know, so many of us, like just last week, I was in a session with an executive who has been a nurse, and she's like, my whole identity is around being a nurse. So what do you do when you're, now she's towards retirement, once you've been working all your life and that's all you've known? So really just understanding ourselves, who we are as people, how does the mind work, what's mindset, the habits, and helping those things help you to create who you want to be. That's really what upskilling to me would entail. So currently, wherever you are in your personal life, in your professional life, is a result of every single decision that you have made. Although some of us may not want to take full responsibility, but once you understand that piece, you know, it's not an accident where you are today. It's a result of decisions, many of them unconscious decisions, because we go through life on autopilot until sometimes we have like a midlife crisis and we wake up. Some of us never have that, but you know, don't wait for that. How do you become more conscious about the decisions you're making, about the choices you're making to create? Think about how you can create that person you want to become. So in terms of identifying areas for yourself where you want to upskill, first think about who it is that you want to become. You might have some people you admire, you know, within your personal life, your family members, or the bigger, you know, idols, leaders. Think about who these people are. What are those attributes? What is it about them that really resonates with you? And then you start adopting some of that, and you almost, I don't want to say fake it till you make it, because that doesn't work for a lot of people, but faith it till you make it, right? So believe in yourself. Believe that you have some of those things and practice it on a regular basis, because it's the daily practice. It's not, you know, we say overnight success. Nothing is an overnight success. There's been 10, 15 years behind all of that to look like an overnight success. So it's really that daily grind, the practice. You have to keep going. And then, you know, when you visualize, it's not enough. Some of you may have heard of manifesting. You cannot just sit there and manifest things. You have to actually do things as well. So first you be, and then you start doing. Okay, so it starts with your being. We're human beings. We're not human doings. So you start being, you act, and then you start doing. You take action. So that action may look like, you know, signing up for a course, watching some YouTube videos, putting that into action, reading books, hiring a coach, working on that skill, whether it's communication, personal, you know, whether it's speaking, whatever relates to your current need at that time. If you visualize and if you see who you admire and what it is you want to get to, it'll naturally come to you. And then once you get started, I can guarantee you, you're not going to stop. Because once you're on that journey of developing yourself, it's an ongoing journey. We're all, you know, if anyone tells you they've reached that end point, they're lying, because there is no finite end to our journey. We're constantly evolving. Otherwise, we're dying, right? So sometimes we get caught up in finding that perfect answer. What's that course I need to sign up for? What's that skill I need to learn? Forget about finding the perfect answer. Nothing is perfect. Okay, we're all imperfect beings. Just start, do something, and then you will learn along the way. Yeah, so I'll start there.
Oh my goodness. This is amazing share. Thank you so much. I love how you the quote from Jim Rohn, work harder on yourself than you do on the job. And I think that is so powerful. And again, to the point that you raised around spending time working on yourself on a daily basis, I think that's extremely important. And, you know, conscious decision making. People don't know that we're making decisions, but how much of the decision are we making on autopilot? Again, there's lots to unpack. Well, most of the time, I can't really comment on everything. This is amazing. Thank you so much, Ian. We're going to go to you next, Buki. Buki, the question for you here, again, going back to the poll that we just completed around strategies and techniques for career success. Success often means different things to different people. From your personal perspective, Buki, how do you define career success? What pivotal decisions or actions have been instrumental in getting you closer to that definition?
Thanks, Ade. That's a very good question. And I'm also learning so much. So thank you for inviting me. The nuggets Hugh and Sheehan are dropping. It's so powerful. And I love what they said about humanity. I always tell people your technical skills will only take you so far. Even if it takes you up to leadership level, it's not going to keep you there. What's going to keep you there are those soft skills, those human skills, how you make people feel as a person. That's what's going to make you a powerful leader. And so for me, both in my career and in my personal life, the way that I measure success is based on impact. I measure it based on the impact that I have. Right? What impact do I have on the people that work with me? What impact do I have on my organization? What impact do I have on my community? For me, it's not about my qualification. It's not about my position. It's not about how far I have come. And like Ian said, nothing is overnight. It's a lot of hard work behind the scenes that a lot of times people don't see. But for me, I define success as the impact that I have. Right? I'm very passionate about immigrants. I'm passionate about minority groups. I'm passionate about women and children. So being able to, raise funds for working mothers to have additional childcare, being able to give someone referrals and help them to get employment, those kind of things for me is what I would look to when I want to speak about success. And what I've done and actions that I've taken. And, when you talk about strategies and things that lead you there, I think you have to have the intention to do good. Like Ian said, the intention to be, you have to have it. And one thing that I always do that helps me, I always ask myself, how would I feel if I were to be the person on the other side? And that guides me in a lot of my relationships with my subordinates. If I don't want to be disrespected, I will not disrespect you. If I don't want to be spoken down to, I will not speak down to you. If I want to be supported, I will support you. So that always helps me make people feel good around me, helps me to see the good that I can do to people. And it always keeps me thinking, how can I help? Within my sphere of influence, how can I help within my community? And a lot of the time, that is what contributes to how I build relationships with people, how I build my networks, and how I'm able to make an impact on the community and within my organization and in my career as well.
Thank you so much, Buki. And you're definitely impacting a lot of lives, and your presence here is a framing that others on the call will aspire to be. So your representation is very meaningful, and thank you so much for joining us on this call today. I'm going to go to you next, Hugh, and this final question in this round is around mentorship. You talked about mentorship during your introduction. Mentorship and networking are often cited as catalysts for career growth. Can you share insights on how you've leveraged these strategies? Additionally, for those starting to build their networks or seeking mentors, what actionable advice would you offer?
Sure. But first, I'm going to just give a special shout out to the admin in the chat, because the panelists the lineup is so strong that I think this person's going to have to ice their fingers when this event's over, because there's so many quotables that have to be referenced and you can't get them wrong. So shout out to the admin, and goosebumps after Bookie's comments about impact, and then of course faith it until you make it. I'm taking that one, if you don't mind, and quoting that ad nauseum. So with regards around mentorship and networking, it was interesting to see in the polls that the mentorship category didn't register a vote. And maybe it's because of a prioritization, but I know for a fact that mentorship and networking has been a substantial catalyst for opening doors for me. When you actively seek someone's time, and that person may be someone you see as having a certain status or title or influence or access to information or guidance, on the receiving end of that request is someone who actually may not be asked for this as often as you think. So just the sole gesture of reaching out for guidance and mentorship is a big shot over the bow. Because one, on the receiving end, when someone reaches out to me for mentorship advice, one, it tells me that they're willing to take a chance and reach out to someone they don't know from Adam, who may not even respond, or may give them a negative reaction, or actually might rebuke the request. So that tells me that's a mark of someone who either has a strong enough character to reach out, someone who's very humble and willing to learn from others, and someone to maybe put their anxieties or their reservations beside and just take a chance. So immediately you're being positioned in a positive light. As much as there's so many unenviable traits in human beings, as a whole, we do like to help others. And we actually do like to inherently share advice. And then, so seeking mentorship and guidance through networking opens so many doors on so many fronts. You're going to get free access to someone else's life journey that can give you some education and insight that you never had. And then because you went out of your way to reach out to them and you're willing and humble enough to listen and learn and grow, that person takes that experience and they go off and tell multiple colleagues of equal standing and status. And in many cases, open doors and rooms that you didn't even know exist because you're top of mind. That experience that you had when you made that connection left you top of mind. And that was very instrumental in me making the pivot into a new industry. And then also, because I had people that I sought mentorship in that space, when I was in rooms in my new employers trying to gain credibility as a leader who wasn't from the space, the fact that I knew someone of high regard already in the space and I could open doors for the organization based on my network access gave me instant credibility in the new space I was in, even though I still had yet to learn the industry. So networking opens doors. It's a catalyst for learning and growth. Now, in terms of like advice, actionable advice, I would say the first thing to do to start the process before anything is build a brand. And you can easily build a brand through your LinkedIn profile. Because when someone reaches out to me and says, look, Hugh, I'd like to learn more. I saw you at this podcast, or, a friend of mine spoke highly of you, or you're in a position or in an industry I'd like to be in. The first thing I do is I go to their profile and I take a look at their profile pic. And then I either see a luminance or I see a really bad selfie, off to a slightly rough start. I look into their profile, look what they've done. I look what they post to see, are they people of purpose? Are they people legitimately trying to learn and grow? Or this is going to be a segue into someone selling me mutual funds? So your brand is everything. Like what you put out there is demonstrated ability as to who you are as a human being and as a person. And the good thing about this is that you can build it in your own unique way. If you're an introvert, you don't have to post every day. You don't have to post as a matter of fact, that will work against you, because then people look at that profile and go, when does this person actually have time to work? So to me, the profile, your brand is the first step. Because actually, I mean, I'll give you an example. Like during the whole commencement of getting prepared for this, Sheehan sent me a message on LinkedIn. So I'm looking forward to work, being a part of the panel with you. Pleasure, love to connect. And I'm like, whoa! And I look, so I went to your profile, and the first thing is the headshot. It's fire. It's fire. It's like, okay, this woman is no joke. She means business. Like, she takes her career in her coaching very seriously, that she made the investment to have a phenomenal professional pick. But then when you look at the banner, you see all her accolades. When you go down into the profile, I see Toronto. So it's like, there's a chance I could have a coffee with her face to face. When I look at her background, what she's accomplished, where she's worked, it further accelerates the intrigue and the interest, and also the motivation to connect. And all this happened within 50 seconds. So that would be my first piece of advice, is just step up your LinkedIn game before you start reaching out and networking with people.
Amazing.
Mhm.
Amazing. And it's interesting you talked about education and insight. I'm just going to comment on that. There's a lot to take away. There's a lot to unpack. Again, we're almost out of time here, so I'm going to limit my comment. But one thing you mentioned that I find very extremely important when it comes to seeking mentors and getting people to support you is education. The education and insights you get from them can shave years of learning. You could shave 5 years of learning by getting that insight. One thing I pray for every day is insight. Just being knowing what to do and when to do it is extremely important, because we might acquire all this knowledge, but if we don't know what to do and how to go about it, and often when the people that help us to navigate those things are mentors, and again, folks like this, beautiful panelists we have on the call today. Thank you so much. We did mention earlier that we have an announcement. We do have an announcement that we'd like to share with the community. The announcement is about our new application. We're happy to announce the launch of our very first software application that is being launched through our sister company, Pro Insight Consulting. The app name is called Timber Time Tracking System. This is a productivity application and is designed for organizations and teams. We talked about virtual teams. We talked about project management teams. Some of the key features of this application is time tracking, leave management, project management, payroll management, reporting. Again, this is a productivity software designed to track the way people do work, especially when we talk about virtual teams. Currently, we're at the beta stage of this application. We've currently onboarded a few clients that are currently helping us with the initial testing of the application. We also have some other consultants within our community that have been testing this application. Our launch date is going to be sometime next month, and we're excited to share this with the community. We figured that what's the better way to share, especially when we're having this sort of conversation. So we wanted to share this exciting information with everyone, and perhaps you're going to hear more about Timber. We're going to be sending you more communication about Timber as things progress. So but we will get back to the conversation. We just wanted to quickly share this little bit of information with you. We will get back to the conversation. I'm going to exit the presentation mode again, and then we'll get back to the conversation. Our next topic, and I was talking about this topic. This next topic is extremely important to me. I find it very, very interesting. And we're talking about personal stories and lessons learned. It's interesting, and I was sharing this with Hugh and Buki on our call Thursday. And earlier in the week, I had the opportunity to interview a candidate for a position within our organization. And one of the conversations we had with that person was around, we typically want to know cultural fit. And my question to her was, why do you want to join OLIT Consulting? And how would you contribute to our mission? And I did have 3 other candidates that were asked the question, but her response was the most exciting. And she said to me that I love what you do at Ole Consulting. You're impacting lives, especially in today's world where there's so many immigrants moving to Canada. And she told a story about people that she knows, immigrant professionals that move into Canada, and they sell all their properties back home and come into this new environment. We know the economic situation. A lot of people are working Uber jobs. That being in the position where she can support an organization that is invested in helping people upskill and helping them navigate their career is something that she's passionate about. And I think we, going back to the question, conversation we had earlier when Shinyen talked about your why, your purpose is really important, and how that aligns. Abuki also talked about aligning with your stakeholder needs. So this is very important. And the next topic is going to be around personal stories and lessons learned. So I'm going to start with you first, Buki. And I think when it comes to things around reflecting and mindset, for me, that's extremely important. So question is, reflecting on your career journey, is there a particular moment or decision that stands out as a turning point for you, either positively or as a setback? How did that experience shape your subsequent decisions or mindset?
So much, Ade. That's a very, very deep question. And I think I've shared some turning points in my career today, like when I moved from Nigeria to South Africa and when I left Deloitte to join SNG Grant Thornton. But the one that I would love to share, and I hope it will also encourage all of you, would be when I decided to leave the profit sharing partnership of SNG Grant Thornton and move to Canada without a job. And, everyone thought I was crazy. And there were moments during that period when I was really scared, when I doubted that decision. But Chien said something which is what motivated me then. It's knowing your why. I knew the reason why I wanted to leave South Africa. And I was determined to do that, irrespective of anything and everything. And I was willing to put everything on the line. No one understood it. My clients, my partners, like everyone rallied around me. What can we do? And I said, I've made up my mind. I have to do this. And they even tried then, my partners back in South Africa to connect me with the partners in Ontario. And we had a conversation and I said, well, and they said, come to Ontario. And I was like, I don't want to go to Ontario. Still, I had my reasons. I had my why. I didn't want to go to Ontario. I said to them, I want to go to Alberta. Well, they said, well, we don't have your service line in Alberta. So if you want to join the firm, you have to come to Ontario. And I said, no. So I shut down. Looking back now, I'm like, what was I thinking? Like, what was going through my head? And so I moved over and I went to the small town where my husband was supposed to work in Alberta. And the plan was, we had everything planned. I get there, I find something to do. He goes back, wraps up his job in South Africa and comes back here to join us. And then we all live together, one big happy family. And so when I got there, through a family friend, I was able to get a referral and I got a job with a consulting firm as an accountant. So I started working. And 3 months down the line, my husband was wrapping up in South Africa, I remember, COVID struck, so he couldn't get into the country. My old plans came crumbling down, like right in front of my eyes, like most firms roll back. So a lot of things were not working anymore. Things were static. I was really sad. Like at that moment, there were days when I was like, okay, let me just pack this up and go back to South Africa. But I didn't, because then I'll remember, but you had a reason why you did this, so you can't. And eventually when I then decided, okay, look, I'm just going to go back and, get myself and get my career back on the path, since I didn't know what the future held. And when I decided to get back in, I decided to go for roles suitable to my experience and my expertise. And I want to encourage you all to always do that. When I was doing my immigrant settlement programs to come to Canada, I had they give you like a person to work with you on your resume and everything. And this person, a fellow immigrant like me, said to me, why do you have director roles Why do you have director roles? Sorry about that. That's my third 1 minute. I'll be with you 1 minute. I'll be with you. I'll look at it. Yes, I'll look at it. 1 minute. It's fine. I'll look at it. Okay. Sorry about that. So it said to me, why are you looking for director roles? You just coming from Africa. You're coming to another continent. You should be ready to start from the bottom. A fellow immigrant, guys. And this is what we do to ourselves. And we should not do that. So I make it a point of duty to encourage every immigrant that comes my way. Know your worth, know your value, know what you bring in. Know what you bring into the table and stand by it. So when I was ready to get back into the field, I went for the roles that were suitable to my experience and expertise, and I got it. And so what I've taken from that experience that has shaped my mindset in life is that sometimes we plan. Because remember, I had my plan, right? But my plans all crumbled, didn't work out. But God had a bigger plan for me. And also know your worth, right? So sometimes trust in God, like trust the process. And when your plans don't work, don't panic, because sometimes God just has a bigger plan, which we don't always understand. But also, I want to encourage you to don't stop trying, know your worth. And if there's something that you need to do in addition to, build yourself to what you want, then do that. But don't follow the narrative of, oh, you need to go start from, go do, menial jobs and go do this. Please don't let people box you into that. And like you said, if you need mentors, if you need people to motivate you, I'm willing to do that for you. There are a lot of people in the community that are willing to do that. So seek that out and hold on to that.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much, Buki. And this is the immigrant story we're talking about. And I think on the call, we have a lot of immigrant professionals. Again, thank you for the representation on the call. We really appreciate having you on the call today. Again, a lot to unpack. We're really grateful for this great group of panelists and the expertise that we have on the call. Thank you so much. And in continuing the personal stories and lessons learned, we're going to go to you next, Shinyan. We all encounter moments of doubt or challenges that test our resolve. Can you share a time when you faced significant diversity or uncertainty in your career? How did you navigate it? And what did you learn about yourself in the process?
Tons. Do we have all day, right? I'm loving this conversation. It's so great. And, Buki's message around your self-worth is so important. First you have to believe in yourself before anybody else can believe in you. So yeah, I just wanted to put that there before I dive into the question, Addie. So the question you posed around adversities, tons and tons. But the one I'll share is when I decided to move into entrepreneurship. So I did it first a lot, on the side along with my full-time role. So was doing it, on the weekends, the evenings, things like that. Did it for a year and built up. I was getting hard to continue doing that. So made the decision to leave my full-time role to go into full-time entrepreneurship. That itself was a big decision. And I won't go into the details of that, but 1 year into the business, it's doing very well. It's grown full-time, it's been amazing. It's been an amazing journey. And then we find out that I'm pregnant with my third. So at this time I had 2 girls who were already 5 and 8, and then we were going to have a newborn. And, my husband was super anxious. He was almost scared at how this is going to be possible. How are we going to do it? And, kept asking me questions. Okay, do you want to go back to a full-time job, so you can get the maternity leave? How are you going to, you just decided to do your business. What are you going to do now? Can you do both? And I really had to step back, as Hugh said, it's okay to pause, just step back and think for myself, because everybody else wants to tell you everything, they want to give you advice, but we have to understand advice comes from each of our personal journeys. So the best person to know what's best for you is actually yourself. Based on what others tell you, then you have to eventually take the decision and own that decision. So I decided I was going to do this no matter what it took. So, I went ahead, I had my baby, and in that process, a lot of my clients actually did not know that I was having a baby. So I had engagements all the way through. So I started, I didn't really take a break after delivering this newborn. And I had an interview scheduled the very next day that he arrived. So obviously I didn't know exactly when he would arrive, but instead of going into the particulars of, what might go wrong, I decided to say, what will go right? How do I want to create this for myself, as I spoke about earlier, and having faith in that process. And Buki said, having faith in the bigger plans that God has for us, the universe has, whatever you believe in. And so I had this interview the very next day, and I decided not to cancel it. I showed up in my adult diapers, and no sleep, and I did it. And then 3 days later, I had an in-person senior leadership retreat to facilitate. So this was a little harder because I had to go to, downtown Toronto. I have a newborn who I'm still breastfeeding. It's only 3 days. So I said, it's okay, I'm going to figure this out. My midwife said, I don't know if you can do this. I said, no, I'm going to do this. So, I got my mom to help me, stay with the baby. I pumped whatever I could in terms of milk, left my mom with the baby, and went and facilitated this retreat. And they found out after I facilitated that I just had a baby and were blown away. But all in all, I think it was inspiring for a lot of them on a whole different level. But for me, what I learned about myself in that process was to really have faith in who you are, what your abilities are, and your potential is far, far greater than what you can even imagine, okay? You're probably touching the surface right now. There's so much more for you to explore. You have to risk it, okay? You have to, if you don't jump off the cliff, the parachute is not going to open. So you have to take those leaps, and then you'll surprise yourself. So I would end it there. Go and take some chances on yourself. People play the lottery on yourself.
Wow. Wow, amazing, inspiring. We have a comment in the chat. What a superwoman. I don't know if that's not a definition of superwoman, I don't know what is. Thank you so much, Sheehan. This is amazing. We're really grateful for having you on the call. Thanks for all the lessons. Thanks for everything that you shared with us on the call today. We're really grateful to be able to learn some very, very important nuggets on the call today. And again, there's a lot that we can recap. I know we're practically out of time right now, so I'm going to go next to Hugh. Again, thank you so much, Sheehan. Really, really inspiring. Thanks for sharing your story. Very, very powerful, very inspiring. We're going to go to you next, Hugh. And the final question, and just bear with us, people. The final question is around the concept of success. Now, success is often comes with its sets of learnings and sometimes misconceptions. What is one thing you wish you knew earlier in your career, or a common myth about success that you like to debunk based on your experiences?
Well, anytime you use the word debunk in a sentence, I'm going to always want to go to that one because it sounds so much more explosive and sensational. But I think the one common myth that I would like to debunk, and I don't think our esteemed audience, this is not going to be something they don't already know. But often when you see, I guess, an image or a story about a so-called successful person, whether it's a leader, it's always very singular. Like they're always by themselves in a picture, or they're on the cover of Forbes. Like you'll never see like Sir Richard Branson or Arianna Huffington or Oprah Winfrey on the cover of a magazine, and then her grandaunt is beside her, or her neighbor, or a grade 6 school teacher. This so-called sort of bootstrap, self-made, and I'm just gonna, go by traditional and throw out a gender-specific term, even though that no longer applies, but the self-made man, it's all crap. Like, it's crap. It's absolute crap. In this day and age, the way things move so quickly, and you have those like windows of opportunity where they can be incredibly successful or horribly wrong. You can't do it by yourself. Like, it literally takes a village. And the one thing that was a real aha moment for me when I started my journey into my career as a healthcare leader in the private treatment space was my coach had said to me, I need you to read a couple books. I want you to read 12 Steps, Alcoholics Anonymous 12 Steps. And I read that book, and it was probably the most powerful book I ever read. It's absolutely rooted in spirituality. And in the 12 Steps, the second step in the 12 Steps where it just sort of floored me is you have to come to believe that a power greater than ourselves will restore us to sanity. And you have to submit to that. And basically it's saying that the situation you're in is so much greater than you. You can no longer manage it. And it's the same with your career. It's the same with your path to success. It is so much greater than you. Like, you need to surround yourselves. Like, even like, you know, Sheehan quotes Jim Rohn. The one quote that always sits with me, and I might butcher it a little bit, but basically what Jim Rohn says is that you're basically a reflection of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And it's so true. Like, surround yourself, be open to learning, be open to mentorship and guidance, and just surround yourself with people that want what's best for you. But at the end of the day, you will have to ultimately make the decision after you've heard everybody else. But it all starts with a group. It truly takes a village. The other thing too is that, you know, when you look for points for knowledge, I actually live in African proverbs. Like, I live in African proverbs, and that's one of them. You know, it takes a village to raise a child. It applies for you in your career.
Amazing. Absolutely. It takes a village. Thank you so much, Hugh. Thank you for your wealth of knowledge. Thank you for the wisdom that you've imparted us with today. We're really grateful for your presence on the call. Again, we are excited, and we're very, very, very grateful for the wealth of knowledge, and, you know, again, for being kind enough to spend this Saturday with us. And to the rest of the panelists, Buki, Shinyan, we're very grateful to have you on the call. Thank you. Thank you so much. This has been an amazing conversation, very insightful. I'm very 100% positive. The participants on the call today have gained a great deal of knowledge, and there's a lot of takeaways. I'm taking notes myself. I have like 3 pages of notes right now that I need to just take back and find a ways to digest them. Hey, guess what? You can never learn a lot. You know, the learning process is an ongoing exercise. Again, we have to keep learning, and some things that we've learned on the call today are things that we may have heard before, or things that you don't know. But again, the best way to learn is through repetition. And when we listen on this call, and the sort of conversation that we've had today has been enriching, and we're very grateful to the panelists. Again, we're sharing our introduction of Timber, our new time tracking system. We're going to be sharing more information about that. The launch date will be communicated soon. We're excited about that. And as we're wrapping up, I just want to thank everybody on the call. Thank you to all the panelists. Thank you to all the participants. We're very grateful to have you on the call. Again, our PM Roundtable is an avenue where we provide a forum for our IT professional community to share information, network, discuss industry trends, and present opportunity for career growth. Ultimately, our goal is to raise leaders, and we definitely hope that today's conversation has furthered that agenda. Thank you so much to everybody for joining us today. Thank you to all the panelists. We're very grateful to have you on the call, and thank you to all the participants that joined us this Saturday. On behalf of our team at Ole Consulting, we want to thank you for joining us. So on that note, we'll say be well, stay safe, and bye for now. Thanks, everyone.